What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Blindside Sports. I know it's been a little bit, but the episodes are going to be cranking out as the NFL and college football season start. My name is Emmett Douglas, and joining me today, this is a guy who has done a report over a fire alarm because a fire drill happened and used it to his advantage to build up a very good trending report. His recent work of fame was the other day when I don't know if any of you guys heard this, but Ireland basically had a gremlin with their Wi-Fi, so where people got free beer and free food, and he made a very good update out of it. It's the Lord of Trending, Isaac Lowenkron, at Isaac Lowenkron, Lowenkron on Twitter. Isaac, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, Emma, thank you so much for having me. I hadn't thought about the fire alarm incident in years, but as usual, whenever you tweet at me during the various happenings at Fox Sports Radio, it brought a smile to my face. I can't believe you remember that, but I haven't thought about that
Well,
for years, but
I
it
forgot
was
about it,
funny.
but I was going through your Twitter to, kind of find stuff to ask you. And I found, that video. I was like, oh, this was great. I remember this at the time. I had to use it in the intro. Now, you've been at Fox Sports Radio for years. I don't, what's the exact number, but how did you get started, to where you are now? You also are the Chargers pre and post game host. I remember a couple years ago, or no, this last season, you actually got to step in and call a couple of those Charger games. And I'm a Seahawks fan, but I have multiple games on at once. So I was able to pull up the radio version and listen to you. But how did you get on Fox Sports Radio, and who helped you throughout the way?
It's really funny because it goes back a long way. Fox Sports Radio actually first started, Emmett, when I was in college. So I went to college at USC and I find out that Fox Sports Radio, a national new sports radio network, is starting in Southern California. And I said, oh my gosh. So very quickly and very eagerly, I applied for an internship at Fox Sports Radio. Did not hear anything back. Emailed, never got a response. Called, left voicemails, never heard anything back. And what's funny is within the last couple of years, I've had a couple of present day Fox Sports Radio interns come up to me and ask me for advice on a career in sports broadcasting. And whenever they do, I have to chuckle and I say, you know what? You're way ahead of where I was when I was your age, because you're already an intern at Fox Sports Radio, and couldn't even I couldn't even get an internship. I couldn't even get a call or an email back. So that's way back where it started. And then, more recently, uh, let's see, I had been working for what is our local affiliate in Los Angeles, the flagship station of the Fox Sports Radio Network, AM 570 LA Sports. And I was doing all sorts of things: anchoring, reporting, fill in hosting, play by play, producing,
Yeah, you did it
you name
all.
it. Yeah. And so the corporation that owned us at the time, which was a huge corporation, went through these massive layoffs. And I was one of the people who was laid off. But then, most fortunately, they hired me back maybe 3 weeks to a month after that. But at the time, I was 570 back then still had the radio broadcast rights to the Lakers. So the only thing I was really doing, as I recall, was I was the fill-in host for Lakers pregame, halftime, post, and Lakers line, the Lakers postgame talk show. And Fox Sports Radio reached out to me because everything's under the same umbrella. And they said, look, we need somebody to anchor the early Sunday morning shift. I think it might have been 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. or something like that. I think it was
Similar
5
to
a.m.
what
to
you do
9
now,
a.m. Yeah,
but
and it
hour
was
earlier.
yeah,
Yep.
it was just once a week, and so I did it, and then slowly but surely, they kept offering me all sorts of other fill-in shifts, and then they added the Saturday morning shift, and it kind of built and built to the point where it is today. And my affinity for anchoring built to the point where it is today, because obviously my long-term goal is to do play-by-play, but as I've been at Fox Sports Radio, I've just fallen in love with anchoring more and more, and I've just had such a great time, especially the way, as you're aware, Emmett, how quickly news breaks across
Oh
social
yeah.
media these days. It's just a great opportunity. And I'm sure we'll get into this more, but Fox Sports Radio gives us the flexibility, obviously, to report breaking important stories, but it also gives us the flexibility to be creative and have fun and really embrace the funny side of sports. So that's basically where it's been to during this time, and I think it's really worked from a creative standpoint, but also from a career standpoint, because I'm an early bird anyway. I'm a morning person, so getting up early is fine with me, but it also allows me the flexibility, as it turns out, to do all the other various jobs that I'm doing now at the
Yep.
same time. I can do it concurrently with what I'm doing at Fox Sports Radio.
Yeah, it's a really cool opportunity. And one of the things that, you kind of do in your updates is add a little creativity and a little bit of your sense of humor, where it comes to you adding a movie clip as audio to, relating to a sports story. Or, a couple weeks ago when Vince Scully unfortunately passed away on, I believe it was Gargano, you went through and callers would be talking about these favorite broadcasters, and you were, go deep into the audio realms and pull this up. So it leads me to this question. You've been at Fox Sports Radio doing updates for a while now, and I think I remember all of your really flashy ones. But to you, what is your favorite report you've ever done?
Boy, that's a great question. There have been so many that I remember for different reasons, Emmett, and those different reasons: humor,
Yep.
timeliness, but also poignancy, I guess. And the Vin Scully day was one of them that honestly was the most memorable, because and I actually have Anthony Gargano to thank for it, really, because look, it's his show. I'm just the anchor on the show, but it's his show. So I couldn't have done what I did that really had a great resonance and meaning for our listeners if he didn't give me the room or the opportunity to do that on what was his show.
Yep.
So Vince Scully obviously was a great personal idol of mine. He actually, believe it or not, wrote me a handwritten letter when I was in college.
Yep. You told that story on air.
Oh,
That's cool. It was great.
Emmett, you remember more stuff about me than I remember about me. You're incredible. So it was really great, because at first he gave me a forum to just kind of express my own personal emotions about how I was handling it. And the point I made, as you recall, was, I comforted myself about Vin Scully's passing using Vin Scully's own words that he uttered about mortality while he was alive. And
Yep.
then this is something that was completely unpredicted, and I'm glad that Fox Sports Radio gives us the flexibility to be creative like this. But people started calling in with the memories of the announcers that they grew up with, and thanks to it's kind of something I'm a big nerd about. I was able to identify the announcer, the game that we're talking about, and very quickly actually play that play-by-play clip
Was it
of their.
YouTube, or did you have to actually would you guys just have them saved in the system, or did you have to pull that audio and edit it? Like, that was very, very on point by you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I wouldn't say this on the air because I want to keep a little mystique about it. But yeah, it was YouTube. YouTube is one of the most amazing
Yep.
resources for somebody in sports broadcasting. And what's great is it's very, very fast. So literally, somebody calls up and says, "Yeah, I was listening to the Oregon Ducks clinch the berth in the BCS national championship game, and I go to YouTube and I've got that clip within 30 seconds." And that
Yeah, it's
really,
crazy.
it really meant so much to the people listening, in addition to their memories of Vin Scully, but the announcers from various markets across the country that they grew up listening to. So that sticks out. And there was one other one, and it actually happened to be during Anthony Gargano's show. It was when Muhammad Ali passed away.
Yeah.
Here is, in my mind, the greatest and most impactful athlete of the 20th century. And he passed away. And I think my words were, what did I say? I said something like, Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time, is now, let's see, what did I say? Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time, now belongs to the ages. That's
Yeah.
what I led. The first thing I said was, but then Again, thanks to YouTube, I was able to go back into YouTube and play audio bites about Ali talking about not necessarily his own death, but mortality and the meaning of life and what
Yep.
he hopes happens, what he hoped would happen to him when he passed away. And this is audio from, the 70s when he's like
Yeah,
on
very
the
old audio. Yeah.
yeah, when he's on the Dick Cavett show. So, thanks to YouTube, I was able to pull that up and share it with a whole new national radio audience within seconds. So that's one of the fun things that my role at Fox Sports Radio allows me to do is really take advantage of technology to really enrich the experience for our listeners with great content like that.
Yeah, I mean, technology, it's, everyone's, worst and best friend at the same time because, when technology's, when it's working, man, it's awesome. But once there's gremlins, like the reason it took me a little bit to get the Zoom link was I had to re-sign into my Zoom account. When there's gremlins, you hate technology. But, you've been doing the Jonas Knox Saturday morning show for, a while now. And I think they're putting that to an end because of the Big Ten thing, or I don't know how that all works. But you've worked with Jonas for years, behind the scenes or, on the same show, because you and Jonas have probably been there, the same amount of time? I mean, Jonas he's impacted a lot of people's careers or lives and, situations with the way he is. What is your favorite Jonas Knox moment?
I think every Jonas Knox moment is tied for first. Jonas, I think, I hope he doesn't listen to this because it'll totally. I really hope he does not listen to this specific part. Jonas, if you're listening to this, skip ahead. Jonas is genuinely one of my favorite people in the business. I'm so proud of him. I'm so happy for his success. I think to people who are new to listening to him, he might come across as a little bit of a jerk if you don't know him, but in reality, he is one of the nicest, most generous, best people that I know. And so I'm just very, very fond of him. And from a professional standpoint, I think the sky is the limit. I mean, he has incredible ability and an incredible ability as a broadcaster to connect with an audience and be listenable and conversational. But I think an even better term is listenable, because I'll borrow a term, Emmett, from football. It's like a quarterback throwing a catchable pass. You can throw a pass to somebody and it can be accurate, but it might be too hard. It's a kind of pass where you make it easy for the receiver to catch it. For example, Joe Montana was legendary for throwing a catchable pass. It was accurate, but it was also soft enough to where the receiver could very easily catch the ball. And that's what Jonas is. He's incredibly listenable because he connects with the audience as a listener, and it's probably just because of his own background with the magic and the magic and the mystique and the romance of listening to the radio. So boy, just in terms of his personality, and I've never actually used this term out loud, which is why I really hope he doesn't listen to this, but I think he is a social media era Colin Cowherd, if I can put it that way, just because of the way that he mirrors modern sports culture and modern sports social media culture. So he talks to the radio audience the way that I think people talk to each other about sports on social media now, if I can put it that way.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So that being said, if he ever tells me he listened to this, I will disavow that I ever said this. I will say that it's fake, and I will disavow. Exactly. Yeah. So I will disavow Eddie. But as you can tell, I'm a big fan of Jonas, and to actually directly answer your question instead of rambling.
It's all good.
What's great is, Jonas really brings out the rascal in me. I'll kind of have a sort of attitude and swagger with him that I don't necessarily have all the time, because he brings it out in me, and he knows that I can pretend that I'm really angry at him or rip him, and he'll follow along and
Yeah,
play along, and
he's good at making the bit better. That's just how Jonas Knox is.
exactly. So for example, uh, there was a situation. It might have been, it was obviously over the summer, and we're there on a Saturday morning, and some Saturday mornings there's a lot going on, some Saturday mornings there's not a lot going on, and
Yep.
I come across an item that Russell Wilson has purchased an enormous new mansion in
Oh,
Denver. Yeah.
I remember this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I
So
know where you're going.
yeah. So ordinarily, you wouldn't really use that unless you didn't really have a lot to talk about. But I'm looking at the specs for this mansion that he bought, and it says it has, and I might have the numbers wrong, but it said it had 4 bedrooms and 12 bathrooms. And I said to myself, and instantly, the light bulb went on above my head, and I said, "Oh my God, this is just perfect for Jonas. This is right
Yeah,
up
that is
his
a
alley."
Jonas story.
Because other hosts might not pick up on that, but I'm like, look, if I mention that detail, Jonas is just going to take the ball with it and go 80 yards. So
Yep.
yeah, he did. So I'm like, four four bedrooms,
It sounds so weird to
12
say.
bathrooms. Yeah, and to this day I don't understand it, because most mansions, 9 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms,
Yeah.
most
Why
single
why only 4 bedrooms? Like they have
ex-
a family.
exactly. So I'm like, boy, if I bring this up with Jonas, this is going to be at least a half an hour, and everyone on
Yep.
social media
Yep.
is going to go, yeah, everyone on social media is going to go crazy. So of course I brought it up, and Jonas just
Lost
hit it
it.
out of the park, and yeah. So I think one kind of informal metric and measurement is honestly the response from listeners like you on Twitter, and yeah, that's
Justin in
certainly
Cincinnati also tweets to Jonas all the
yes,
time. He's
yeah.
very
So
funny guy. But
yeah, so
you
go.
mentioned tweeting,
Mhm.
and this is one thing that I love about Jonas Knox, and he it's different because a lot of people in the industry don't really handle hate tweets the way that he does. People will. I think at this point he said it a couple weeks ago or months ago. I think it was, I don't remember what show it was on, but he was basically like, I feel like sometimes people just send all these horrible tweets at me to get a retweet, because he handles the hate so well. He doesn't care where some of these people will be blocking or just going absolutely crazy on the fans over Twitter over hate. But Jonas just takes it, retweets it, and moves on with his day, and it doesn't really get him. That's why I like him.
And I think that the audience feels that way too. I just love it, because you're exactly right, Emmett. Instead of it bothering him and rattling him, he actually turns that into an asset and a strength. In fact, I actually feel the same way. I think that all the people who do hate tweet him are just doing it on purpose to get those
Get a
tweets.
retweet, yeah,
Yeah, to get
because
those
they're all
tweets.
0 follower accounts. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and that's something that I do with him, and I do with other hosts. I'm like, and even with Kevin Durant, as you've heard, I've poked fun at Kevin
Oh,
Durant.
yeah, I was trolling him on Twitter last week because he's some. So there's some reporter who was just going in on him for being soft, and
Uh-huh.
I think it was Jordan Schultz. You might have saw this, and Kevin Durant did not like Jordan Schultz. I never heard of the guy. I mean, it was like a guy with like 1,000 followers, but he was verified. I think he was a Bay Area guy, but Kevin Durant did not like that. He was,
Oh,
yeah, it was under his quote tweets. He tweeted that he's just going in on Jordan Schultz for, I'm not soft. Why does it matter? Why do people have to say all this? And it is very funny the way that Kevin Durant handles his hate tweets.
and that's precisely what makes it so entertaining to me, Emmett, because I've said this on the air multiple times. I'm like, okay, if I'm a multi-gazillionaire, I literally could be flying in a private plane to Paris for dinner, eating lobster on a tropical island, chilling in the
Could have your own
jacuzzi at my.
personal driver. Like
Right. Yes, I could be in the
you have your own
jacuzzi.
like personal Twitter guy too. Like you don't need to be
Yes.
on there if you care that much. Come on.
When you have as much money as Kevin Durant, you can have your own personal everything to do
For real.
literally, yeah, to do
You don't
everything
have to do
for you.
anything. You just have to enjoy it.
Precisely. And I'm like, Kevin, you're a great basketball player, but why, when you're a multi gazillionaire, are you clapping back at someone who has 6 followers, which he actually has? So I think I subscribe more to the Jonas Knox school of social media than the Kevin Durant school.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm on it because I like to like kind of live tweet when stuff goes on about like games and all that. But yeah, Twitter's a very weird place. Emmett Douglas joined by Isaac Lowenkron. You do a couple kind of play-by-play gigs. You have the Angel City one, the soccer one, then you have the college basketball one. Now, how do you how's that the soccer one working for you? You liking that, or what's been some of the best moments there?
As much as I love Jonas Knox, as much as I love Fox Sports Radio, this has been the most enjoyable experience of my career. And it's all happened in the last 4 months with Angel City FC and in the National Women's Soccer League. I actually was approached about it completely out of the blue, 10 days before the first game in franchise history. And I knew that Angel City was coming in as an expansion team, but I didn't think that they were going to have a local broadcasting deal. And even if they did, I'm not sure I would have been able to pursue it, Emmett, because I had not done play-by-play of soccer since I was in college.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's actually very funny because the second to last soccer match that I did up until this year with Angel City while I was in college, it was for USC against UCLA. They played this particular match actually in the LA Coliseum.
Oh, wow.
And one of
cool.
UCLA, it was that was an incredible experience for me back in college. But one of UCLA's goal scorers in that match is the person who was my partner now on the Angel City broadcast, Tracy Bailey. Yeah. So that's what I call a small world.
Yeah, that's a coincidence right there.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I don't know if they're going to have any broadcasting plans. And even if I did, I could not send them any sample of my work because I haven't done soccer. I've done NBA, NFL, college football, but I haven't done soccer since college. So I was actually approached literally 10 days before the first broadcast, completely out of the blue. I very quickly said yes, not really knowing what was what to expect. Well, what was my capability of doing soccer play-by-play? So literally after 5 minutes after I hung up the phone, I was on YouTube practicing, researching and practicing, trying to practice doing soccer play-by-play. And I'll tell you a funny story. So I had 10 days notice, but 5 days before the first regular season match, they had their final preseason match down at Cal State Fullerton. So I thought to myself, oh, this is great. I will go down there with a recorder and I'll announce the game into a recorder just strictly to practice. And that'll be, I'll work the kinks out, I'll work the rust off, and then I'll have as good a shot as possible of, surviving the first game. So Cal State Fullerton has about maybe a 10,000 seat stadium. So I knew from being here in the LA market that they had a fairly large press box with about 10 broadcast booths. So I made arrangements to go down there, and I show up and I find out that in the years since I had last been there, they had turned the broadcast booths into offices for people in their athletic department.
Oh,
so
wow.
So there was only one big press box. It was basically one big room. So I go in there, and I'm very self-conscious because I hadn't done soccer since I was in college, and I assumed I'd be in a private booth where nobody would hear how horrible I was. And it turns out that I'm right there in the middle, in earshot of everyone in the press box, which means all the reporters covering the team.
Oh,
And believe it or
pressure's
not,
on now, buddy.
yeah, and believe it or not, I'm like sitting directly next to all the Angel City like executives and management people. So I show up and I'm flabbergasted. Like, I haven't done a soccer match since I'm in college. I'm probably going to be terrible. There's no way I can avoid these people listening to me. So anyway, to make a long story short, I went out and I did the best I could. And I surprisingly, it came very naturally to me. And even more surprising, the Angel City people, who have just been tremendous to me, they thought I was really good, which really surprised me. And then we had the first match of the regular season, and we were playing a team, North Carolina, that had won the most championships in league history, and we were underdogs, and there was a sellout crowd at Bank of California Stadium. And, it's the first match in franchise history. And I'm saying to myself, boy, it would be really great if these fans could leave here with a really positive impression of women's soccer and this product and this team. And I'm like, if they can just have a really entertaining experience, hopefully we can get these people to keep coming back. And as it turned out, it could not have started better. Not only did Angel City win the match, but they scored a goal within 3 minutes,
Wow.
which
That's impressive.
Yeah,
That's quick. Yeah.
as
For
you know,
soccer.
you don't see that every day in soccer. So they scored a goal 3 minutes into the match. They then scored a goal 13 minutes into the match, and I said to myself, for people who are just here on a lark, the worst thing that can happen tonight is a scoreless tie with not a lot of action. So to have 2 goals in the first 13 minutes and have the crowd going absolutely bonkers and have a sellout crowd go home happy like that, I was just so happy for everyone with Angel City, because that opening night could not have gone any better. I think it exceeded a lot of people's even dreams, and it's something that I'm going to remember for a long time. And then, off we've gone, and it's been just the most fun I've ever had, and I've had a lot of fun before that, so that's saying something.
Yeah, man. I've heard some of your calls, and it seems very entertaining. It seems like a fun little gig to do. Now, another thing that you do is you work for the Chargers, and the Chargers are in the most stacked division in football right now. I mean, there's really no arguing that the AFC West is the best division in the NFL. And I have to ask you, where do you have the Chargers ranking this season? Because I could see them winning the division. I mean, Herbert gets better every year. I think it's going to be a challenge, but where do you have the Chargers ranking, and how far do you think, they will go in the playoffs?
Oh, they have the capability to go all the way to the Super Bowl. There's no doubt in my mind, because of the sort of talent they have, especially Justin Herbert. His
Yeah,
performance,
he gets better every year. I love Justin Herbert.
Yeah, his performance down the stretch against the Raiders last year. At one point, he threw, he threw passes on 29 consecutive snaps. I want to say that there were 5 season on the line situations, whether it be converting a 4th down or a 2-point conversion or a touchdown at the end of regulation. He was 5 for 5 in those situations. It was the greatest individual quarterbacking performance I've ever seen. That being said, the problem is they opened the year with 2 division games against the Raiders, and then on Thursday Night Football at Kansas City. So it's tough enough to play 2 division games out of the chute, but especially when that second division game is on the road.
It's Kansas City.
Yeah, and on Thursday Night Football, just 4 days after.
Short week.
Yeah, so because the AFC West could potentially cannibalize itself, it's going to be a battle just to make the playoffs. I mean, if every team in the AFC West goes 1-1 against one another, there's really not going to be a lot of separation. So
no,
yeah, I think all these division games. I was doing some research for the first Raiders game today, and I think 3 of the last 4 games between the Raiders and the Chargers were decided on the final play. So you can imagine if that's extrapolated through the rest of the division. So they have enough talent to absolutely go all the way to the Super Bowl. But the problem is it's so competitive and so close that if they're on the wrong side of a couple of those, bad breaks, whether it be a special teams miscue or an
Or
injury.
Brandon Staley going for it on the fourth down.
Oh, that's a whole other story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one for me too, because there was a couple games last season where Brandon Staley doing that costed the Chargers. And I mean, I understand, going for it, but when you can take 3 points and it helps you out, why not take the 3 points? I mean, I think that the Chargers, if they can get that all figured out and not cost themselves points or, turn the ball over, I think they can do good. But, the division, there's not going to be much separation. And I feel like the team who doesn't even, if there's like, I think 3 teams are going to make the playoffs, but there's, that fourth team, I don't think they're going to be below 500. I think they're going to be 500 or like 9-8. Like it's going to be very close.
Well, and that's what happened with the Chargers last year when they did go 9-8. And you mentioned taking the 3 points. I think that's what happened in the Thursday night game.
Yeah,
basically
against Kansas City. Yep.
Precisely. Yeah. So at that time, I certainly
like week 16.
You're absolutely right. I strongly disagreed with that. Obviously, the 4th and 1 from their 18-yard line against the Raiders was clearly the most controversial one. Aside from those two, even all the other fourth down decisions, and I think they went for it maybe 35 times on fourth down, I might have disagreed with that particular decision, but I understood the thinking. But those two specific instances, the one against the Chiefs and the one against the Raiders, I not only disagreed, but I did not understand the thinking, and I thought the risk was much greater than the potential reward there for sure.
Yeah, that's 2 extra wins if the Chargers didn't go for it on fourth down. I mean, we hate to play the what if game, but it could have been a big kind of change. And you mentioned it, how Justin Herbert, we talked about that. Is it out of the land? Like, is it too crazy to say he could win the MVP this year, in your opinion?
No, not at all, because 5 weeks into the season last year, he was a legitimate MVP candidate.
Yep.
Just in his
I remember
second
tweeting to Chris Plank and Arnie Spanier, and Arnie's like, he's crazy for saying that. Oh, come on.
Well,
Arnie didn't like that one.
I'll try to contain my amazement that he felt that way on that. But no, it was after the Cleveland game when he dueled with Baker Mayfield, and I think the final score was something like 47-42. But 5 weeks into the season, he was a legitimate MVP candidate for sure. So
Mike Williams saved my fantasy season so many times.
Hey, he's a good guy to have on your team, because even in the games before that, Mike Williams caught the game-winning touchdown pass from Herbert in Week 3 at Kansas City and Week 1 at Washington. So yeah, we think alike on that one for sure.
Yeah, I think the Chargers, they have potential to do really good this year. It's just a matter of, maybe not going for it on the 18 on fourth down. There's some things that could be fixed, and I think Justin Herbert gets better every year. Obviously, more experience. More leadership, what that means. Now, I've asked you about your favorite moments on Fox, but what is the craziest thing that has went down while you were on the air? It could be, something, behind the scenes. It could be, like a huge story breaks, like a Kobe Bryant or a Muhammad Ali. But what's been the most crazy thing that's challenged you the most at Fox Sports Radio that's, been on the air?
There have been a lot, including the fire alarm incident that you talked about.
That was so good.
Yeah. So
it was, if you were not during the trade deadline, that would have been a lot worse, because the way you kind of trade alert, like they walked that one into your hands right there.
Yeah, that really worked out. So to summarize for your listeners, they were testing the fire alarm in the building, which is great unless you're on live and there's nothing you can do to stop it in your studio. So like you said, it happened to be the day of the NFL trade deadline. So I thought real quick and used the old Fox Sports Radio creativity to, have the fire alarm go off in the background and say, trade alert. But the other one that really came to mind, Emmett, and I think Jonas has talked about this before, was there was one time when I was filling in starting at like 3:00 in the morning. And,
I remember this.
Yeah. So
this is a good story.
Yeah, this is very early in my tenure at Fox Sports Radio. So I'm really careful about setting my alarm. In fact, I set 2 alarms when I have to wake up to go to Fox. So for some reason, either the alarms didn't go off or I hit stop and I fell back asleep. But basically at about 3:05, I get a phone call from either Dan Byer or Eddie Garcia basically saying, where are you? So I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So at that time, I think I lived only about 20 or 25 minutes away. So I got in my car on the dead run and I'm motoring down to Fox Sports Radio and I'm listening to it. And I know that the bottom of the hour break comes up, at the bottom of the hour. So
Yep.
I'm pulling off the freeway and I'm like, all right, I know they're close. I can tell. And, at Fox Sports Radio, we're on the ground level. And I did a very foolish thing. It all worked out, but I really would never, ever do it again. I basically pulled up on the street right in front of our side entrance. And as I'm pulling up, I'm listening to 570 on the radio. And I'm pulling up at I'm listening to 570 at the radio. I can hear the music starting for them going to break. So I pull up on the curb, I race into the studio, and literally as I go into the studio, I can hear the music starting for the update. So I basically dive for the microphone, turn on the microphone. I do my whole update from memory. And then I finish the update and I sit back in my chair and take a deep breath and exhale, and everyone's like applauding me. Now, what could have been really bad was I pulled my car up at the curb, and, on some streets you can park on the curb, but not on the street adjacent to our studio. That was actually in the bus lane. So,
wow.
So heaven forbid would be some bus barreling down at 3:30 in the morning. It would have crashed right into my car, and who knows what would have happened. So, fortunately, I got out of that unscathed, and the local bus driver got out of it unscathed.
Yeah, that's a very radio guy story. I mean, I'm sure Ben Maller would love to hear that one. And have you? I mean, I know you've worked with Eddie, or filled in for Eddie a couple times, but it's not very common. But are you and Ben Maller good friends?
Emmett, I've known Ben since I was in high school. I've personally known Ben since I was in high school.
Did you guys go to the same high school? Or?
We did. Yeah, we did go to the same high school, many years apart. Had to throw that in there so people know that Ben is,
Ben's 95 years old.
Precisely. Very good.
Yeah.
So I actually met him when I was in high school. I did this crazy thing. So the Angels in Angel Stadium, which back then was Anaheim Stadium, the Rams still played there. So they had a.
All right, we are back with Isaac Lowenkron after some gremlins. Isaac, we're talking about his relationship with the great and powerful Ben Maller. Keep on going.
So let's see. This was when I was in high school, and back then the Angels used to play. The Rams used to play at Angel Stadium. It was back then Anaheim Stadium. So they had a football press box down the third base line. So I wrote the Angels and said, "Hey, nobody's in the football press box during Angels games. Can I use one of the empty booths up there to practice my baseball play-by-play of Angels games? I'd be willing to buy my own ticket. You won't have to supervise me." And they said, "No, we can't do it for liability reasons," or something like that. But they said, "We'll give you a credential for a game where you can come sit in the baseball press box, and we'll introduce you to all the broadcasters and see how they do everything." And so I went. I was in high school, and a guy comes up to me, and it was Ben Maller. And
oh, wow.
He somehow knew who I was. He came up and introduced himself, and I obviously knew who he was from listening to sports radio, and he could not have been nicer. And then our paths would cross again. My first job after graduating college, actually it was 2 weeks before I graduated college, was editing audio from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. for $10 an hour at the old Fox Sports AM 1150 in Los Angeles. Yeah, which was the forerunner of AM 570. And Ben was the morning anchor. So we worked together for the first couple of months of my career. In fact, when I interviewed for that job, he was there and he remembered me, which certainly certainly didn't hurt and made a positive impression. So yeah, it's been really great for us to keep track and work together at various points throughout the course of our respective careers. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of his. We spent many a night in the Dodger Stadium press box back when I was covering the Dodgers, and he would always stop by in the Dodger Stadium press box. So yeah, our paths have crossed many, many, many times for a very long time, and it's always a pleasure when it does.
Yeah, Ben Maller is one of the all-time greats, kind of like Jonas, but he's a way different host, but one of the all-time greats. And also a Clipper fan. So I'm sure back when you worked for the Clippers, he really liked that because, another Clipper kind of person doing the updates. Because he I don't know if you know this, but Ben will always, like, all the producers and board ops are all huge Laker guys. So Ben always has to troll them about that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like about Fox Sports Radio is that, our hosts make other people part of the act, as it were, and part of the entertainment.
Yep.
There's some hosts who you'd think that they do everything by themselves, but what I love is the sense of, I guess, collegiality amongst our hosts, if that's even a word.
Yep.
They'll bring the anchor or the producer and the studio engineer on the air, and we have such a fun, agreeable culture at Fox Sports Radio. I think our listeners kind of really enjoy that because it's the way most people experience sports, which is around their friends and around their buddies. And that's,
Yep.
That's what I like about Fox Sports Radio. It's not just somebody,
It's not just two hosts just talking, no other voices getting heard. It's, Fox Sports has obviously, the anchors, the producers jumping on in, or they'll interview guests, or, this is kind of rare, but like the Odd Couple and Ben Maller and Cavino and Rich still do phone calls. So yeah, Fox is definitely still kind of keeping the old way of radio going.
Yeah, it's not like a preacher, preaching solo from high above to everybody else. We talk about sports the way that fans out there talk about sports, which is with their buddies. And a lot of times there's substantive discussions about, X's and O's and important issues in sports. But a lot of times it's just joking around and goofing around. And as Jonas would say, playing grab ass.
Yes, exactly. Now, this has been the end of Blindside Sports. Isaac Lowenkron, it was a very fun time. Learned a lot about you and your career. Thanks for hopping on.
Hey, my pleasure, Emmett, and thank you so much for the invite. Great to talk to you, and thanks for listening, and thanks for all your support over the years. It's much appreciated.
No problem, man. You can, so the listeners know where to hear you. This will probably be out tomorrow or Thursday. You have any unusual Fox Sports Radio shifts besides the weekend?
Actually, this is a very light week for me, so I think I'm going to be on with Doug Gottlieb, 12 to 4 Pacific, at the end of the week. And then, the normal deal over the weekend. And actually, it's a very quiet weekend because Angel City is not playing this weekend, and the Chargers are not playing this weekend.
Nope.
So this might be the quietest weekend I have until next April.
Yep. Isaac, it was fun, man. Isaac Lowenkron on Twitter. He posts some of his radio highlights of Angel City over there if you want to go check him out. Isaac, it was a pleasure coming on. Make sure you leave a like and show some support to the show. Thanks for listening. Have a good day. See ya.